Hello and welcome to Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today, as always, by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On today's episode, we have a weekend preview for you all. We've got NWSL action to give you some picks, and we've also are going to welcome Women's Super League. So we're very excited to chat about that on Attacking Third moving forward. So that's your reminder. Women's Super League is here. It's back this weekend. We're going to get into it, and you can stream all the matches on Paramount Plus. Reminder for you all that you can watch all of our Attacking Third episodes, previews, recaps, interviews on YouTube. Please subscribe to our page to get notified whenever we go live. YouTube.com/Attacking Third. Good morning. Good morning, Lisa. How are you?
Good morning, Sandra. I am good. I can't believe that it's the weekend is here. I sound repetitive, but like we just had the international break and now we're back with NWSL. Of course, the Super League is here. I am just thrilled.
I'm happy to be here. Grateful to you as always, as my colleague and co-host, because we're going a little early. I'm
Hey, all
at
good.
another. I'm at another conference. The work never ends,
You're
right? But
saving the world, Sandra. You're traveling the world. You're saving the world. You're recruiting the people for CBS. You're
I'm
getting all
trying.
the knowledge. You're making us better here. Do what we do for you.
I've tried, and you know what? And this is work, but it's also like fun for me because there's nothing I love more than chatting about the game with you, chatting about NWSL, and now we're going to be chatting about Women's Super League. We're going to be plugging that a little later in the episode, but. NWSL action is back. We had a little bit of a break. There was an international window. We chatted a bit about the United States women's soccer team, them going up against Nigeria, picking up the 2 wins. And there was some NWSL action that took place. There was the rescheduled match day 3 game that took place between Gotham FC and North Carolina Courage. And there was also the introduction of the Copa Angelina between Angel City FC and the senior Mexican women's national team. Congrats to them on winning the first inaugural Copa Angelina. And you can catch the preview, or excuse me, the recap that we did just the other day. But that meant the majority of other clubs throughout the league had a little bit of time off, but now they're back. Now they're back this weekend to go ahead and continue this really what is the final stretch
Yeah.
of the regular season. There is, quite frankly, it's less. I was going to say a month, but it's less than a month left remaining in this regular season. Let's take a look at the slate of games that are going to be taking place this weekend. All 12 clubs in action. We've got Orlando Pride versus Portland Thorns kicking things off Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. OL Reign versus Chicago Red Stars Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Washington Spirit versus San Diego Wave FC. Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern. North Carolina Courage versus Racing Louisville FC. Saturday at 7 p.m. ET. And then Sunday, another doubleheader to close things out. It's Houston Dash versus Angel City, 7 p.m. ET, and New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC versus Kansas City Current, closing out things Sunday, 6 p.m. ET. Let's start making some picks. I feel like it's been a long time since we've done this, even though it's not true. We made some picks just last weekend, but we're gonna make some picks for all the matches this weekend. Perhaps let's start with what we consider some of the biggest games this weekend, ones that we're gonna keep maybe a little bit closer of an eye on. Let's start with Orlando Pride versus Portland Thorns. This one again kicking off things on Friday at 7 p.m. ET. Lisa, when you're looking at these two teams, who are you picking and why? Why is this one of the biggest games of the weekend for you?
This match between Orlando and Portland is huge because we remember back, I mean, the international break, it feels like it lasted a lifetime. So we have to remember back before that when both of these teams played. And you look at a team like Orlando Pride, they were on a bit of a streak, picking up points, whether it was ties, getting draws and splitting points with another team. They had 2 wins at the end of August there, but they are coming off of a loss to OL Reign. But this was a moment that match against OL Reign was at home at Exploria Stadium, and they're back at home against this Portland Thorns side. So And speaking with Seb Hines a few weeks ago, the interim head coach for Orlando Pride, he said that Orlando enters this really tough stretch where they're playing teams like OL Reign, Portland Thorns. They've got North Carolina Courage also coming up, but they're playing at home those matches. So they went on the road and they ended up picking up really big wins over teams like San Diego, Kansas City. So now that they're at home, can they turn that around, use that to their advantage? When you look at the last match that Orlando played against OL Reign, it was 1-1. Orlando ended up scoring first in this game. They picked off a pass from OL Reign, and then they got on the board first. And then they let up a late game equalizer for Megan Rapinoe, who was on a tear throughout August. She won NWSL Player of the Month, and for very good reason. But she was one of the players that made such an impact in that game against Orlando. So now, as you look at this Portland side, they're coming off back-to-back losses. Their most recent one was a 2-0 loss to San Diego. And this Portland side is sitting in fourth place of the standings. And they're a couple points off of that top line because San Diego in number 1 is 31 points, Portland 28 points. And as you mentioned, this is the point in the season where it comes down to crunch time because Portland wants to climb the standings. They want to be first or second, get a bye. I mean, they want to be first, get the shield, get a bye in the first week of playoffs. But if they keep dropping points, they'll continue to drop, obviously, in the standings. So this is a game that Portland has to win. Meanwhile, Orlando, they're number 8. So they're just outside that playoff bubble. They're looking to continue and go on that streak of picking up points. It's at Exploria Stadium, which gives the upper hand to Orlando. But I think this Portland side, having a bit of rest, their players coming back from international break now, I think I'm going to give the upper hand to Portland Thorns in this match.
Listen, I like the pick. I'm leaning towards Portland as well. When I was looking at this particular matchup, I was like, who needs it more? I like that you highlighted that a little bit right now. I think if you're making the argument for both teams, you could say that they both kind of feel that way, despite Portland among the top 3, trying to chase the shield. You have an Orlando Pride team that went on a really good streak very recently, had that snapped, but they're on the outside looking in. So they are maybe going to play also a little bit with a certain sense of urgency. Maybe that's different from Portland Thorns. And, we're going early. We're going early this morning with everybody joining us, live. But I'm curious, because of that, we don't necessarily have the availability reports, coming into this weekend of games. So I'm curious what that looks like for Portland with some of their international players who have, spent time or coming off of that international window. We saw Sophia Smith get a lot of minutes over the course of those 2 matches with the United States and, take a little bit of a knock here and there, quite frankly. So I'm curious of, if she's going to be on a minutes restriction, how she's going to look and feel for this team. And I do think this is a game that if she's able to go, could be the game where maybe she gets back, some of that dog, right? We'll just label it like that. Some of that, we're looking for those goals again. It's like she came back from CONCACAF championships and she picked up where she left off, but there's a couple games here prior to heading into this international break that they just participated in, where she was, a little bit iced, in front of goal. So I'm curious if coming off of these games that she just had 2 really good performances against another good Nigerian team, that she can carry that into this game and build off of it. So I do think this defensive shape from Orlando Pride could be a good test, could be the thing that, Sophia Smith can break through it and get back to the goal scoring and, maybe even, stay relevant in that Golden Boot race. So I'm curious if this has the makings of a draw, but I think Portland will have a little bit more, and I'm going to give them the edge in this one as well. So I'm going with the Thorns as my pick in this one as well.
So I like that you picked Portland as well in this one because and you think it'll be close, right? You're dabbling with the idea of a draw, and I totally see that as well. The last time these 2 sides played, Portland dunked on Orlando. It was nil in that game. So I don't
Yeah.
think it'll be a blowout by any means. I think it'll be much closer. We've seen so much more from Orlando, but we're both sticking with Portland on this one.
Yeah, let's look at another big game this weekend. It's going to be OL Reign versus Chicago Red Stars. They're pretty close in the table, right, against each other. And I think this is a game where you're looking at these two particular teams, and you have to imagine that the two of them are also keeping an eye on what's in front of them a little bit. Maybe perhaps feeling like that shield is not out of reach when you're looking at anywhere from like a 5 to 6 point swing. So I do imagine that this game, they're perhaps viewing it like that a little bit. You've got, again, two teams in the upper half of the table, but in those lower playoff spots, and looking at each other and saying, hey, like this can be one of those 6 point games if we get the full win against the opposition here. So when you're looking at these two teams, Lisa, do you have an outright winner? Is this the one that you're looking at as a draw? Tell me what you're thinking about this game.
Yeah, you've read my mind, Sandra. This is my potential draw for the weekend. I think that the way that these two sides shake out and sitting 5 and 6, OL Reign and Chicago respectively in the standings, as you mentioned, just 1 point off of each other and 4 or 5 points off of the number one role, a number one spot in the standings. I mean, OL Reign is coming off back-to-back wins before the international break. The last one against Orlando is the late game winner by Megan Rapinoe, but they ended up conceding first in that game. And that's something that OL Reign has struggled with. They have these small moments of breakdown and then they concede. And against a team like Chicago will capitalize on that and punish teams for doing that. Now, as you mentioned, the last match we talked about, we don't have availability reports as of now. So the question marks around Chicago's players, whether someone like Pugh coming back, Nair coming back from international break, I think both of them should be good to go. But defensively and the structure for Chicago is still a little bit flexible. There's a little bit of movement there in that back line to see who's available, who can go. If Chris Petroselli has a little bit more depth defensively for the Chicago side, I would perhaps give them the upper hand over OL Reign because Chicago is coming off of a dominant 4-0 win over Racing Louisville, a win that Chicago needed 100%. They had been struggling to put up goals in matches before that one. The match just before, they conceded 4 to North Carolina. So scoring was a bit of a struggle for Chicago. And as you mentioned with Sophia Smith, I think Mallory Pugh gets the rub from the national team and getting 2 consecutive starts over this international break with the U.S. side in those friendlies, just adding so much to the roster for the U.S. I hope she brings that back to Chicago, and I think that she could. So honestly, I have a draw between these two sides. I really do. What about you? Who are you looking at here?
I don't blame you. Again, I think there's a number of these games. I think when we're talking about what we're talking about right now in terms of the biggest matches, this weekend games that we're keeping an eye on, I think you can make a case for any of these couple of matches that we're talking about to try to make the argument for a draw between these teams specifically. And I do think that this one in particular also has, similar arguments, but I'm not gonna save my draw for this one. I'm gonna go with the winner. And listen, it's the final stretch of the regular season. So I'm in Chicago and I'm going Chicago all the way. I'm gonna go with the Red Stars as my pick in this one. These two teams, playing prior in the regular season. It was an interesting match. It was another one of those, like we saw, like kind of, I don't want to say it was like kind of a grinder out type of a match, but it was a narrow scoreline between the two teams, and Chicago took all 3 points at home. And these two teams typically play each other, pretty closely. They have played to numerous draws before in the past, but I just don't consider these two teams the similar teams of the past. And they're both two teams who are, in very different parts of their season right now. So I'm curious of, if someone like Megan Rapinoe is going to continue that, lights out kind of form that we've been, seeing from her through August, into a match like this. Again, another player coming off of that international window. And I'm looking at Chicago and I'm wondering, while they had a few players out on international duty for both United States and Canada, I'm curious if maybe the little a bit of extra time off aided this team,
Mhm.
aided them, and is helpful for some of the players who are carrying a bit of knocks, into this point of the season. We're starting to see very small minutes from somebody like Morgan Gautrat, and if she is someone that they are working back slowly, they don't have a lot of time left to do that. So I'm curious if she's able to have some more minutes in this game. And listen, if she does, this is a player that can absolutely calm things down in the middle third for the Chicago Red Stars team. And when you're looking at midfield versus midfield, I think a lot of it's going to be dictated, there between these two sides. So Vanessa DiBernardo and Danny Codoperico have been having excellent seasons for Chicago in their midfield. So I don't blame you for going with a draw, but I also, wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being another one of those kind of narrow, close matches. But maybe there's a winner on the end of it, and I'm going to be hopeful that it's Chicago. So we'll see. Last one for the biggest games that we're going to be keeping a special eye on this weekend. We've got Houston Dash taking on Angel City FC. Houston Dash hanging out in that top three. They've also got the Shield in their sights. Angel City still on the outside looking in. They have gone weeks now, just looking at either that fifth or sixth spot, trying to have the game that will propel them into the top six. And they're going to be going up against a pretty heavy hitter here, Lisa. Do you have a winner in this one?
I mean, the heavy hitter in Houston, 100% the heavy hitter in this match. It's one of the biggest matches of the weekend. I was just talking with someone who follows the NWSL closely, but has been incredibly busy with other stuff this summer. And they were looking at the standings and they were like, Houston, number 2. And I was like, where have you been? This team is on fire right now. They're incredibly fun to watch. They're coming off of Houston Dash is coming off of a draw and a loss prior to that. But before that, 6 matches for Houston where they were picking up points. They were on a run. Meanwhile, Angel City, they're on a little bit of a run themselves. 4 games undefeated. But during this international break, they did play the Mexican national team where they suffered a loss. We saw different player rotation. And I think moments like that really help a team like Angel City, where other players are getting minutes for starters and players that play 90 minutes. When they get the opportunity to sit on the bench and watch a game unfold, you end up learning so much more because it gives you a different perspective, and you're not just pissed off because you're not on the pitch, but you're actually learning from what's happening, what the player in your position is doing on the pitch, so you can help them, and that in turn helps yourself. So I think Angel City does have a little bit of an advantage there with their 4 undefeated, that they're star players and their starters ended up getting a rest over this international break. They didn't play in that competition. But going up against this Houston side that is on a tear, as you mentioned, Maria Sanchez, a player that did play in this international break against Angel City. She has a little bit of understanding as to what's to come in this match. I think Ebony Salmon has also done a fantastic job. When you look at the back line for Houston, they have moments where they've struggled this year, but overall, it's much tighter now for Houston defensively than it was earlier in this season. And the fact that Houston's number 2 in the standings, 29 points, just 2 points off of that number 1 spot that San Diego holds at the top, I think Houston's going to win this one over Angel City. I want to see them keep going. I don't know. I'm riding this like Houston Dash roller coaster right now.
Oh yeah, look, dash the F on, right? Like that's the energy right now. Like they're absolutely rolling with it. I'm with you. I wanna continue to see them make a push for number 1. I think no matter what they've got, they definitely have their first ever NWSL regular season postseason appearance like in their sights, right? This is like one thing they can finally check off. But I mean, within that, they're potentially competing for so much more. Like they absolutely have something like the Shield in their sights. It's not unrealistic for them at this point in the season. And I just really like their individual pieces, that they have on on the pitch for Houston. I think it's a little bit disrespectful, quite frankly, that Katie Naughton wasn't listed for team of the month in August, and she hasn't been listed to my recollection. And anyone can please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think she's been named to any team of the month this year, and she's been an absolute staple for that team on their back line in this incredible season that they've been having. She's been like the constant for them, quite
She
frankly.
has been for years, frankly. She has been the constant in the back line for Houston for years.
So I think, sort of having, someone like that being able to not just anchor, but quarterback your defensive back line. And then, making the offseason move and signing for somebody like Maria Sanchez, the midseason move for somebody like an Ebony Salmon. I think it's finally all coming together for this franchise, perhaps at the right time. And who would imagine that would be the case? When you're losing somebody like a Rachel Daly, but they seem to be, handling all of these things coming their way, and I would like to continue to see them go ahead and continue on this really impressive run. So I'm also going with Houston in this match for the weekend. I'm hopeful that we're going to get to come back here and be correct, but we love to come back onto the recaps and check and see if we're right or wrong. But let's make some other picks, Lisa. Washington Spirit versus San Diego Wave FC. Who you got?
So this match, who do we have? Washington, San Diego. Washington is struggling, right? Coming off that draw versus Houston. They let up a stoppage time equalizer in that match. They've also got a new interim coach because Angela Salem coached the last time Washington was out. So now they have Albertine Montoya, who coached collegiately Santa Clara, Stanford, WPSL, WPS. He also coached Nicole Barnhart, Kelly O'Hara, players at Washington Spirit. So they have a bit of stability back in Washington. And San Diego, back-to-back wins before the international break. They're at the top of the standings. Is this the week that Washington gets their very first win since the start of the season? No. San Diego, I have them taking the win in this one. I think that Alex Morgan's on a bit of a tear right now, and coming back from international break, she's pumped up, she's fired, she's ready to go. I give it to San Diego in this one. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you as well. I just again, I do wonder if some of this time off perhaps is going to help a team like the Spirits, but unclear, right? Uncertain, to be determined. That's that's sort of the energy right now. But I have a little bit of the opposite feeling of that when we're looking at a team like San Diego. Look, with so many few games remaining for some of these teams, especially the top three of these standings, I think San Diego is looking at those ambitions, the similar ambitions of a Houston Dash team, but trying to accomplish these things in their inaugural season, making a postseason, potentially winning a Shield, going far in the playoffs, maybe winning the whole damn thing, right? Like all of those things are probably on their list, but they've only got X amount of games to try to make that happen. And I like the energy coming out of this team. I'm also going with the Wave in this one. I don't know if Alex Morgan is going to be coming in and adding to her tally for the Golden Boot race. I wouldn't be surprised if she does, but I wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't either, right? We sometimes see that it needs to be a game or two to get readjusted after coming out of national team duty sometimes for the players as they return to the league. So we'll see how that looks for them. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't like to see, somebody else be able to get those goals, whether it's somebody like a Amira Ali, right, or even a Jakobsen who has provided some interesting looks for them, out on the wing. So I'm going with San Diego in this one. We have some high hopes for them, right? I think in this season, hopefully they come and improve us right with this pick as well. Let's take a look at this next match: North Carolina Courage versus Racing Louisville. Again, two bottom half teams. But we're looking at two teams with two very different energies right now during the final month of this regular season. Who you got in this one, Lisa?
I have North Carolina picking up the win. They are coming up on after a midweek match that they just played. They ended up winning over Gotham, but only scoring a goal, and it was kind of a sloppy one at that, a bit redirected, but hey, they put the pressure on. They ended up getting the goal at the end of that match. And they're coming off games where they're scoring goals, 2 before that, 3 before that, 4 goals before that, 3 before that. They know how to find the back of the net. I think that North Carolina is going to come out and show this Racing Louisville side what they're made of. Racing Louisville, they're on a bit of a skid, right? They're coming off of that 4-0 loss to Chicago Red Stars. Before that, it was a slew of draws, 3 in a row. They really are just struggling at this point, and North Carolina is trying to shift into a different gear. So I have North Carolina for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if there was a word that we could have used for what Racing was going through, whether it was something like a slump or a skid or what, because they just weren't picking up wins, but they also definitely weren't losing, but they definitely weren't getting the wins. So it's just like it's a confusion, quite frankly. They've got 2 total wins on the season this year. You hit it right on the head, coming off a really tough loss. Again, maybe a team, another one of these teams that is going to benefit a little bit from the break. Maybe somebody like Savannah DeMello is going to come in and score another banger, that we've seen her do off of these sort of dead ball situations. Because we didn't see her get minutes during the national team games that she was invited to be a part of and participate in. So I'm curious as to how she's going to look for this team on her return, and I'm curious, to see if what this team's going to look like, without somebody like a Freya Olofsson, right? There was some news that broke around both these teams, quite frankly, for news and signings for either side. But Olofsson going to Real Madrid, I think, it's you're losing a piece for the remainder of this season if you're Racing. And again, I just think that North Carolina is playing with an entirely different type of energy, and I think they are definitely going to pick up all 3 points in this match. Last one for NWSL action, we've got New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC versus Kansas City Current. I like how we kind of spaced these out, Lisa, because we were talking about biggest matches that we want to keep an eye on over the weekend, and we're talking about a couple of teams here towards the end of this NWSL segment who have been struggling a little bit this season, and we've gone from Racing Louisville to Gotham FC. What are we looking at in this one when you're looking at a team like Gotham going up against a team like Kansas City?
I mean, I think we're looking at goals from a Kansas City side. Gotham is at home. This game will be played at Red Bull Arena, but Kansas City is on this unbelievable run, picking up points, undefeated in match after match after match after match. And Gotham is just really, really struggling right now. They have not even picked up points in a draw in incredibly long time. They have basically no points heading into this one. So I'm giving this one to Kansas City. They're going to come out guns blazing. They've got a great facility that they're in with. We talked about that national team rub. Haley Mace coming back from getting minutes with the national team over this international break. I give Kansas City the win.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just Gotham, we were talking a little bit about that game that they just came off of, and during the recap, we were like, God, it was almost going to be not a loss. Like, it maybe wasn't going to be a win, but they were almost not going to lose. And it would have been like their first point that they picked up in weeks. And unfortunately, conceding that sort of late timed goal. And I'm wondering, and again, curious how they're going to look with some of their pieces back in the mix, right? Whether it's Purse or Mewis, what's this team look like going up against, a really hot Kansas City side? But I'm going with the Current as well. They've just got too good a form right now. Congrats to their players. They've got 3 players on the team of the month for August. And one of them being Lola Bonta, who's been massive for them in the midfield. So I'm going to be looking for another big performance from that player in particular against a team like Gotham, and hopefully they prove us right and make us look like geniuses because we made those picks. So we've got more picks for you though. It's not just NWSL. We're going to be making picks for Women's Super League. We're going to break that down right after a quick break.
The UEFA Champions League. 9 months of heart-stopping, hold-your-breath acceleration. While Mbappe shines in the city of lights, Benzema's racking up the hat tricks, and the Reds want more magic in Liverpool. This ain't amateur hour. This is the best of the best of the best. This is the UEFA Champions League. Stream every match live on Paramount Plus.
All right, this weekend, it marks the start of Women's Super League. You can catch all of the matches on Paramount Plus. You can watch our previews, our deep dives, our 101 episodes that dropped earlier in the week. If you're new to Women's Super League, check out the 101. We talk about, Women's Super League, what it is, teams involved, the breakdown of things there. And we took a really deep dive with Sophie Lawson. We chatted all about WSL and maybe dark horse teams to take a look at and players to keep an eye on. And it was a really, really fun conversation, and we were really happy to have her on the show. So check those out if you need some preppers for WSL matches this weekend. We've got Tottenham versus Manchester United. Saturday, 7:30 a.m. Eastern. It's going to be the complete opposite of NWSL as I'm looking at some of these kickoff times. Chelsea versus West Ham, Sunday, 7:30 a.m. Eastern. Everton versus Leicester City, Sunday, 8 a.m. Triple header for Sunday. Reading versus Liverpool, also Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern. Brighton versus Aston Villa, also Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern. And then we've got Manchester City versus Arsenal at 2 p.m. Eastern. I have a funny feeling that that's going to be a heavily watched match for those of us watching in the United States. But let's make a couple picks here, Lisa, because similar to NWSL, we're going to be keeping our eye on some matches, ones that we think might be really big matches to sort of kick off all of the action this season in WSL. Let's start with Tottenham versus Man United. Again, this one kicking off at 7:30 a.m. Eastern. First of all, are you going to wake up with me and watch this game?
I mean, 7:30 is quite early, but sure, why not? I'll be up.
Right on.
Why not? Why not? We got to watch this one. But even if fans don't catch it live, we'll have the highlights on Attacking Third YouTube. I think you can rewatch the matches on the Paramount Plus app as well. Not sure. We'll see how that goes this weekend. But from my understanding, you should be able to catch them all. Paramount Plus, Attacking Third YouTube, anywhere you want. But this opening match that we're chatting about, Tottenham versus Man United, looking back to last year, Man United, they finished fourth, 42 points. They're the top four front runner in this Super League. Meanwhile, Tottenham, they finished fifth, but they had 32 points. So 10-point drop off from United to Tottenham in last year's finish. You look at some of the players that Tottenham has acquired, especially for NWSL fans. Angard James, Haz James has gone from Orlando to Tottenham, and Amy Turner from Orlando Pride is also with Tottenham. So some familiar faces there for the American fan base. But Manchester United, it's their second year with Mark Skinner, who was formerly with Orlando Pride, actually. And it's now time for him to kind of sink his teeth into this team. We know coaches, when they come in their first season, they're trying to implement a lot of different things, bring in different players. But now that it's Skinner's second year, he can really take whatever they did last year and move it forward into this season. They signed Lucia Garcia from Atletico Bilbao in Spain. She had 161 appearances, 63 goals, 24-year-old attacking player on the left side. She is probably one of the biggest signings over this summer, and Manchester United picked her up in the preseason. United played PSG. They won that game. They lost to Bayern Munich. So they've had the competition, and now it's time to put it into action. I mean, United wants to be a top finisher, get into the Champions League. They were one spot off of the Champions League last year. So now is their chance to do it. And it all starts with this first match. I have United taking the win.
So you're going Manchester United. All right. I was curious if maybe you were going to go the way of the, you're the men's team that you follow, which is Spurs, right? So yeah, I was like, maybe because she follows Spurs, like she might pick Tottenham in this one. But you know what? I like that you weren't swayed by your affinity for them. I like that you're going with the Red Devils here. But look, not to start things off controversial, but I'm going to go with a draw in this one. I think that there's enough here between these two teams to kind of play things out and sort of even things out. I like the way they're matched. I think they're pretty evenly matched. I also think it's match day one. We're kicking things off, officially for this campaign, and we're all excited about it. But listen, there might still be a bit of kicking off some of that rust, trying to make sure that your passes are crisp, trying to make sure that you're like getting connected with your teammates, building that cohesion still. And I'm not too sure if this is going to be like maybe one of those games where we're going to get some really big, heavy hitting type of action. I would love to come back on there and be incorrect, but I really think this one has the makings of a draw, and I'm going with the draw between these two teams. Let's take a look at Chelsea versus West Ham. This one also kicking off at 7:30 a.m., but you'll catch it on Sunday. When we're looking at these two teams, Lisa, who do you got?
For these matches, I mean, it's reigning champions Chelsea against the number 6 finisher last year in West Ham. West Ham signed 9 players over the summer, and they brought in some good players. Riza Shimizu, a defender from Tokyo Verde Belize, who American fans saw at the Women's Cup this summer in Racing Louisville. They signed Kira Flannery, English midfielder from Arsenal. They signed Christy Smith from Man United. So West Ham's bulking up a bit. They want to be a contender. They want to climb the standings a little bit. But against a team like Chelsea, 3-time reigning champions, heading into this one, they also acquired some heavy hitters. Lucy Watson, the English winger from Sheffield United, and of course Canadian international Khadijah Buchanan, the defender from Lyon. She's with Chelsea now. I think she's going to be a huge piece in this Chelsea defense. They've still got Sam Kerr up top. I'm going with Chelsea in this one. I think that this is such a fun, great game to watch Sunday morning, because the fact that we get to see how Chelsea performs and what they're going to do this year. If there are any changes that come out, if it's in their formation or maybe their style of play, we get to see Sam Kerr and her form, how she took this off season and how she's going to head into this year. But over West Ham, I think they'll put up a bit of a challenge. It might be a bit scrappy at times, but I still give the W to Chelsea at the end of this.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I'm picking the Blues in this one as well. I'm so amped to be able to, watch Sam Kerr perform with Chelsea, being able to cover her for a few years here in Chicago while she was with the Red Stars. It was a phenomenal era for the team. And quite frankly, I think she's just gotten better as she continues her seasons and her professional career with Chelsea in the Women's Super League. So I just look at these two teams, and while I really like some of the signings that West Ham has made and try to sort of, give themselves a little bit of a added boost into this upcoming season to try to make a run perhaps in the middle of the table. I just don't know if that's going to be enough for this first game of the season, and I'm going to be going with Chelsea as well. Let's do 1/3 biggest WSL match that we're going to be keeping an eye on this weekend. It's going to be Manchester City versus Arsenal. Who do you got in this one, Lisa? This one's kicking off at Sunday, 2 p.m. Oh, you muted, Belle.
Oh, sorry about that. This is a huge game. City versus Arsenal. Lots of trades happening between these two sides. I'm trying to redirect this back to American fan bases. Kim Little, that was with OL Reign this summer. She's with Arsenal. She's back over there. You can also see Lena Hurtig traded from Juventus to Arsenal, the Swedish international forward. Meanwhile, Man City, they picked up some players just yesterday. English midfielder Kira Walsh from Barcelona. And after the Euros, right? Ellen White retired. After winning the Euros, English international. She played with City for years, so she is now off this roster. Lucy Bronze left Manchester City for Barcelona at the end of last season. Manager Gareth Taylor has some decisions to make in terms of who's going to start, what's going to happen here, how this team is going to look, especially against an Arsenal side that's looking to get wins, right, and pick up points, as both of these sides are. I think this one was tricky for me. I almost dubbed this one as a draw, but in the end, I'm going to go with Arsenal. With the loss of players like White, Bronze for City, I think that finding that goal-scoring attack for them is going to be a little bit more difficult. So I'm going to give the upper hand to Arsenal in this one. Who do you have? City, Arsenal? What are your picks on this?
I think we might be going 2 for 2 here, because as I was looking at these two teams and their head to head, I just think the familiarity that the Gunners have here amongst each other, amongst their team, returning players, right? Miedema, they didn't have to worry about that. They ended up, there were headlines around that. Like, is she coming? Is she going to return? Is she going to go? Like, what's going to happen? But they've got her back, and they don't have to worry about that. Kim Little, right? Always a threat in the mix for this team. And taking a look at that and knowing that they have that familiarity, that's not something that they're going to have to worry about maybe making those adjustments or getting used to in these early phases of the season. It's already going to be there in terms of the chemistry between some of these players who typically get tagged for the starting 11s here. And I'm not too sure if Garrett Taylor and Manchester City are going to have that same energy. I believe in Bunny Shaw. I want to see her thrive in Women's Super League. And she, again, similar to Sam Kerr, a player that I'm very excited to continue to watch on the regular through Paramount Plus and all the matches on the app. But I don't know if it's going to happen in this particular game, in this match day 1 of the season. So I'm also going with Arsenal as my pick for this weekend of the biggest Women's Super League matches to keep an eye on. It's an exciting time for us here at Attacking Third, isn't it? We're so thrilled to welcome a Women's Super League coverage, Women's Super League matches into the fold of the CBS family. And we want to make sure that you all watch it whenever you can. So thanks so much for joining us today on Attacking Third. Download, follow, listen to us anywhere you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Subscribe to us on YouTube to know whenever we'll go live. Start of Women's Super League this weekend. Watch it on Paramount Plus, and we will be back this week with so much more. For Sandra, Herrera, and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.